What can we do so that we actually save time when we are preparing our talks, our presentations, our reports? Is there something that we can do beforehand so that when the time comes that we need to actually sit down and write those slides and write those sentences in the report, we have more time, more clarity, and so on? So I want to address this because I see something happening almost all the time, and I was also doing this mistake when I was first starting to figure out the method of how I can make my own life easier. And that is that whenever you have to prepare for a talk or write a report, a thesis, a paper, whatever it is that you're doing, you are starting from scratch. So you are starting from this blank screen, and that is a very scary position to be in because you are starting from nothing. And then whatever it is that you need to create, you have to put this gigantic effort in order to go from 0 to 1, basically, with every sentence, with every decision, like, am I supposed to say this in this way, or am I supposed to put this title or this another title, or structure my document in this way, structure my presentation in that other way, and so on. And this part, actually, the decision-making part of what goes where and how to put it all together is what is actually the bottleneck that makes that process of presentation making, report writing, thesis writing, paper writing eternal. It never ends. As soon as and it's also very exhausting because you are exhausted from all the decisions that you have to make. Instead, so this clearly doesn't work. What I found works like a charm is splitting those two parts, those two processes, so the decision making and the structuring, and actually building of the slides and writing the sentences and writing your thesis or your report into two different parts. So that way, when you're actually there to sit down and write, you can focus on that. You do not need to make all of those decisions, like where should I put this part of the project, does this go here, or maybe my storyline isn't quite fitting, and so on. So you split those two parts and you actually make first the structure and then you start writing. And I know this might sound counterintuitive because you're like, oh, but I'm doing the work 2 times, but it's actually time saving, because that way, first of all, it's time saving because when you sit down to write and you know exactly what you are supposed to write about, you do not have this, you're very much less likely to procrastinate and to avoid the task because you have a clear task. You know that you have to go from A to B, and you know the exact path you need to take in order to get there. However, this is what is actually going to save you time. So making all those decisions beforehand, taking those decisions beforehand, structuring your messy data, your messy work, because I know how STEM work is. If you're coding, if you're doing experiments, if you are doing basically anything, it gets so messy so quickly. So it is our job first to detangle that and find sort of some sense into it, and then write it down and digest it for people who are actually going to read it. So my suggestion here, and what I know works because it worked for me, it worked for many of my clients, I would say all of them, actually build that skill of structuring first, writing later. And when I say structuring, I really mean asking yourself the right questions so that you can produce whether a document or a sketch of what is your presentation going to look like, what is your thesis going to look like, what is your report going to look like. And doing that, as anything in this life, is a skill. So you have to develop this skill of making the decisions fast to identify which parts of your messy data and messy projects are important for your audience or not. And this actually is what I help STEM professionals do. So I help them train this decision-making muscle in a way that they are able to identify what is important, what isn't, how to structure that brilliant work that they're doing so that when they have to deliver it, they do not waste time, waste energy, and they do not enter in this stress spiral at 2 a.m. the night before your big presentation. And for most importantly, I would say it in a way that it makes it easier for the people who are actually listening to you to understand how brilliant and important your work is. If you are interested in this kind of help, I will leave a link down below in the description where you can schedule a completely free intro session with me where we can talk about exactly that. Like, what is your routine when you need to express and explain your work? What are the bottlenecks that you feel are happening in this process? How do you feel we can make it better? I can give you feedback. We can talk about all of the things that can and should move faster and easier so that your projects and your presentation are never again a problem for you. I hope you found this video useful, and as always, see you in the next few days with another video. Bye bye.